Hi everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about one more type of factoring that we use when we have sum and difference of cubes. So as always with the flowchart, we're always going to try for GCF first. Then if we have two terms, our options so far that we've learned are dots, but now we have something else. We could use something called sum and difference of cubes, which sometimes is referred to as SOAP, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. So today's lesson will be using GCF and then this new concept called sum and difference of cubes. So we can title today's lesson by factoring by sum and difference of cubes. So the first thing you need to know about sum and difference of cubes is, well, what are my perfect cubes? So let's make that list of perfect cubes that we've been making all throughout this first unit. So perfect cubes. So we know 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times 4 times 4, 5 times 5 times 5, 6 times 6 times 6, and so on and so on. Most of the problems you do will probably end here, right? 6 times 6 times 6. But it's important to recognize these numbers because when you see them, you'll have a better idea as to know that we have to factor by sum and difference of cubes. So let's take a look at an example. So example number 1 will be to factor x to the third minus 216. So obviously with all types of factoring, we're looking for a GCF. This has a letter, this has a number, so obviously there's no GCF that I can pull out between the two of them. It's a difference, but this time it's a difference of perfect cubes. 216 was on that perfect cube list, and we know that x to the third is a perfect cube because it's the result of x times x times x. So there must be a new formula that we need to use to factor by sum and difference of cubes. So the first thing that you want to do is rewrite the expression as something cubed minus something cubed. Because right now they're already perfect cubes. So we need to figure out what thing to the third power gave me x to the third. What thing to the third power gave me 216. So we can actually do that now. So we want to do what thing to the third power gives me x to the third, and what thing to the third power gives me 216. This one's easy. X to the third gives me x to the third. So we're just kind of rewriting that first one, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a minute. Now, what thing or number to the third power gives me 216? If you're not sure and you don't know that the answer is 6, 6 to the third is 216, you could hit math, and option 4, there's a little cube root button, and all you would have to do is type in the cube root of 216, and that should give you 6. So it doesn't work for the letters, but it'll work for the numbers. So once you've rewritten it in that expression, the second step is going to be to label the first with A and the second with B. So I'm going to do that here. This is my A term and this is my B term. And then you're just going to plug it in to the formula. So the factored formula is A, B, A squared, AB, and B squared. So let's do it. So we have a small parenthesis, then we have a long parenthesis. The small parenthesis gets A and B. So A is X, and B is 6, so I'm going to put 6 here. And then in the long parenthesis, I do A squared, so I'm going to take X and square it. So X squared is just X squared. Then next I have AB, which means A times B, which is 6 times X, which is 6X. You don't have to write it X6. It's probably more proper to put 6X. And then the last term is B squared. So B squared is just 6. 6 squared, we know, is 36. Now, you must be wondering, what do I do about the signs? So this is where that SOAP thing comes in. So we put the same sign from the original in here, same. So this one, I'm going to put same. That's the sign that goes here. Then opposite of that goes in there. So opposite of the minus is going to be a plus. And then this last sign in here is always positive. So the plus is going to go there. So that's where we get SOAP from. Same, opposite, always positive. That helps us with the signs. So our final answer to the factoring problem is this. I just put these letters underneath it to help us with the formula down here. So this isn't really part of the question. So you can actually like cross that off at the end. Like that's not the answer. That was just to help us. So these are your factors. So 3 steps when factoring SOAP. Please make sure you write down those steps because we're going to use them moving forward in example number 2. Okay, example number 2. 8x to the third plus 27 this time. So we have to do 3 steps. Step 1, rewrite it as something cubed plus something cubed. So let's go to the calculator, hit math, option 4, and type in the cube root of 8 and then the cube root of 27. Pause the video until you've done so and then hit resume when you're ready. Okay, so the cube root of 8 should have given you 2, and the cube root of 27 should have given you 3. So this helps us writing this. What cube gives me 27? That's 3. So that's going to go here. Now, what cube gives me 8? We know is 2. But we also have to include the x here because we need x to the third now to be x to the third. So we need both. We need 8x to the third. So 2 cubed gives me 8, and x cubed gives me this x to the cubed. Now we know our second step. Label this first parenthesis A, second parenthesis B, and we're going to follow the pattern. So remember, it's small parenthesis, long parenthesis. In the small parenthesis, it goes A, B. In the big parenthesis, it goes A squared, AB, and B squared. So let's go ahead and do it. A is 2x, so that is going to go here. B is 3, so that's going to go here. A squared is square everything in A. Square the 2, square the x. So 2 squared is 4, and x squared is x squared. Square both of the pieces in A. AB means A times B, so 2x times 3 is 6x. And then B squared is take B, which is 3, and square it, gives me 9. Now our signs, same, opposite, always positive, SOAP. Same sign as the original goes in there. Opposite of that goes in the next one, always positive goes there. So this is my final answer. Again, this I don't need. I was just using it to help me. So it doesn't matter if you have a plus sign first or a minus sign. It's still same as the original, opposite, always positive. All right, I've got one more example for us today. Example number 3. Let's call this 8x to the third minus 64y to the third. This one's tricky. This one is tricky because 8 is a perfect cube and so is 64. But you have to see in this one that we could actually take out a GCF first. So Just because it's a perfect cube doesn't mean you shouldn't always check and follow the flowchart. So we actually can divide both pieces by 8. So if I do that, these will cancel, and I'll be left with x to the third minus 8y to the third. So not only did I take out a GCF, but now my inside here, this x to the third minus 8y cubed, this is now a difference of two perfect cubes. So now we're going to factor this second part using difference of cubes. So how do we do that? We have to write it as something cubed minus something cubed. So what thing to the third power gives me x to the third? That one's easy. That's just x. What thing to the third power gives me 8y to the third? Well, from the previous example, we know that the cube root of 8 is 2. So we know that 2 to the third must give me 8. And then to get this y to the third, I need to add a y in here. Second step is let's label this first one as an A, second one with a B, and let's do small parenthesis, long parenthesis, A, B, A squared, A, B squared. So A goes in here, A is X, B goes in here, B is 2y. Then we have a squared goes in here, so take x and square it. That's just x squared. AB means a times b, so x times 2y is just 2xy, or 2yx, or x2y, but this is the nicer way to write it. And then b squared is take b and square it, so 2y. Take both pieces and square it. Square the 2, square the y. 2 squared is 4. Y squared is just y squared. Now the signs, same as the original goes in here. Opposite, always positive. So same, opposite, always positive. And with this one, you just have to not forget about this lonely GCF that we took out in the beginning. Put it in front and put a nice box around that. That's your final answer. All right, that's it for SOAP. If you have any questions, jot them down. Otherwise, we'll see you in class tomorrow. Have a good night.